Well, welcome, all of you. Welcome. Welcome back to so many of you. But I do see new faces, and we're so glad when new people join us. I know some of that has to do with our featured reader, Martín Espada, who I've been trying to get to Mystic for a couple of years. So we are wrapping up our 31st year. Pretty good run. COVID tried to drag us down by the ankles, but we didn't let that happen. And we've shifted locations quite happily. So we're really grateful for all of you who made the transition with us from the Mystic Museum of Art, which is where you read the last time you were with us, Martín, years ago, about 20 years ago. And so we're happy to be here. So thanks. We're going to start tonight with Faith Vicinanza. I often stand up here and tell you how much I love and admire the poets that I've invited here, and it's always true. I met Faith about 25 years ago when I bought a derelict property on Block Island and turned it into an inn, and a group of women from Litchfield, Connecticut, known as the Monday Poets, decided to come to my inn for a retreat, not knowing that I had any interest in poetry. And so for 3 days, I just listened to them and made their food and emptied out all the pieces of paper from their trash cans because they were there to write new poems. Faith has been a mentor and hero of mine, both as a poet, but in particular, as an advocate for poets. She started a small press years ago known as Hanover Press. Many of you were here last month to hear Taylor Molly read. Faith actually produced Taylor's first 2 books out of her small first book. I think What Learning Leaves, right? Out of her small press that operated out of a small condo. In the many years that we've known each other, she continues to find new material and stretch and grow as a writer. Recently, she opened her own art gallery in Southbury. It's Vicinanza Studios. But for those of you from that part of the state, there's workshops all week long in different mediums, many writing workshops. There's painting workshops. There's workshops on grief. There's karaoke. Faith is also an incredible dancer, and you can see videos of her competing online. She's also an incredible visual artist, and one of the items that she brought tonight, she does paintings and turns them into beautiful journals. So Faith's newest chapbook, one of 6, is Arturo, and she also has some journals on the table. And I can't wait to hear what you're going to read, Faith. Welcome back, and come on up, please.
That's a hard act to follow. Lisa is always so supportive and so generous and so loving to all of the poets in her world. And we are happy that she's in our world. So thank you, Lisa, for tonight. And I don't see Melanie, but thank you to Melanie, thank you to the board, thank you to all the volunteers for the many, many years of making this happen, one of the premier poetry series in the state. So last year, I had the distinct honor of being named or awarded something called the David K. Merrill Lifetime Achievement in the Arts Award. And thank you. And so I didn't know it was going to happen, and the commission, Southbury Arts and Culture, called me 3 days ahead of time and decided to give me a heads up. So I was very grateful that they did that. It gave me a chance to write a little poem for the occasion. So I'm going to start with this small poem called A Tribute. And when I refer to David in the poem, it's David K. Merrill, who's a very distinguished artist known throughout New England. Happens to also be a Southbury resident, so it's called A Tribute. What does it mean to dedicate your life wholly to one thing, to master it, David? To be a beacon, to saturate the world with color, one brushstroke at a time? What does it mean to inspire, to be a legacy, a foundation for those who come after? What does it mean to be someone who aspires? Someone who may fall short, but knows just enough not to stop reaching, to keep dreaming. What does it mean, this moment that will pass quickly as moments do, but will last a lifetime in memory and in the heart? What does it mean? It means everything. Thank you, and I appreciate your generosity. And you can chill until I'm done. So you can relax and just enjoy the reading, and then save your appreciation for the end of this reading. Thank you. So I run a program called Sunday Writes every Sunday morning from 10 to noon. And we spend the first hour writing and then the second hour doing editing and critiquing and talking about publishing our work. And I also write when I give prompts to my attendees. So the first two poems I'm going to read are fairly new, and they're written from prompts that I gave to the writing group. And the first one is called A Prayer for Our Time. If I renounced Catholicism, do not believe in God, believe instead in an earthbound spirituality, in nature, uphold that planet Earth is sacred and that everything in the universe is a manifestation of the divine, you are, no more or less, the embodiment of the divine, as am I. Or the monk, or the banker, or the landscaper, the CEO, the child, as able-bodied as any to hear my confession. And so I confess to you, as I might to a rabbi or a priest, that I fear I may lose myself to indifference. Compassion, a vague memory, as empathy cowers in dark alleyways. I fear I'll quell my outrage. In time, silence my voice, accept my misgivings, and no proportion of repentance or reparations will bring me to the water's edge. Let me sift wet sand once more through eager fingers. Let me sleep again, unsheltered, humbled, beneath a night sky. Allow me the grace to see the miraculous in all things. Forgive me my self-doubt. This incantation, this prayer set afloat on the north wind, that you, whomever you are, might come for me, come to me, remind me I am not alone. And this is the newest one of the bunch from this morning, from today. And the prompt to the group was, what's stopping you? What's stopping you? When she asks, I smile, chuckle, knowing I am not interested in giving a meaningful reply, no excuses either about why I won't play. The list is long, changes from time to time, but the core reasons remain predictably familiar if you know me, how I think, know how I have a habit of second-guessing myself, despite a track record that implies otherwise, despite some level of belief others have in me. She asks again, as if repetition will win out, soften me, or catch me with my guard down. What's stopping me? I mouth reluctantly. Sleepless nights, though I don't say it out loud, anxiety, childhood trauma, think it, won't say it, sit silent, staring, smile intentional. At times, she is patient, she is always patient. Waits until I acquiesce. Pull up an old favorite, one that is true for most of us. Fear of failure, fear of disappointing others. Fear too of success, though less so. Fear, I mouth, half-hearted. Fear of what? She insists. Of course you would want to know the details, the complex hidden behind a simple response. I sit silent, contemplate. A vein I'll have to open to tell her, tell myself the truth. The next two poems are from a collection that's coming out in the fall called Breathe. It's about family. And so the collection has sections. The first section is father, and then mother, brother, husband, and then family. And there's an arc to the collection. It goes from the very dark to finding our way, right? We have to find our way in the world. Or we sit in the dark corner with our thumb in our mouth. But these two are from the chapter called Brother. And so my brother took his life when he was 43. Wasilla, Alaska, December 12th, 2001. Before they scrub, scrape, disinfect, remove, I want to lie on the kitchen floor, rest my cheek in your blood that streams through ceiling vent, pools on white linoleum. Friends, family, husband insist and I stay away until cleaning crews come and leave. 3 days. What they cannot get out, they cover. Linen white tie-back stapled to stairs, walls, floors, the vent above and below. When they have done all that they can, I come to your house, now mine. Do not expect so much white. Your empty bedroom, the cold inside of an egg, blown clean. Tuesday past midnight. She drifts aimlessly past the open patio slider, out to the covered deck, peeling paint crackles under bare feet. Overlooked gutters mishandle this downpour, lightning veins the far horizon, reminiscent of her childhood when she'd sneak at night to whichever window would do, stare into the black for hours, watch for that streak of electrified white, knowing nothing that waits in the dark appears without illumination, not even her. These days, she notices little, in daylight or in dark. His absence gives rise to her own. She waits in this sudden rain for that thunderbolt of white light, for that jolt back from the dead. This poem, in fact, I think this is where I first met you, Martine. Rennie McQuilkin ran a retreat at the school near Sunken Garden, Miss Porter's, right? I think that's where we first met. And I was away at the retreat when my oldest son, his girlfriend at the time, gave birth to my first grandchild, and he was in critical condition, and the doctors told them he wouldn't live to see the next day. He's now 28 and brilliant and adorable and quite healthy. Your father says you are beautiful, so I wrote this while I was away at that retreat. Her tan legs, weary from the weight of you, now stretch. to breaking as she heaves and trembles and turns in her pain. We wait the hours she pushes, strains to bear you incomplete. Your father will say, even after they open you sideways, far wider than you opened your mother, that you are beautiful. Your father, her lover, my son, will say it again, again, and again, intending you to life, to the living. It is an incantation, meant to fill in the spaces in uncertain hearts, provide some relief from the scalpel-edged moment-to-moment considerations. We are all afraid. IV tubes in and catheter out, your arched back aching for the seashell milk of your mother's arms, yet the familiar beat of your mother's heart replaced by the beat of machinery, while your father says in early morning, dim hospital room and in late hours, you are beautiful, and you are. Regret. A quote. Pale death knocks with impartial foot at poor men's hovels and kings' palaces. Horace. She is too much cheekbone, frail, parchment, remnant, pale by standing always in shadow. Winter becomes her. Memory like loosed seed sprouts haphazard at her feet. She wants to be a photograph in his left pocket. Only she is here, and he is long dead. This one is for my husband. First snow. Even in July this last year, you wore a sweater to warm your thinning body. Winter would have been oppressive. Let me come with you, I posed as death took up residence in our living room, waited for you to notice him, then for you to lie down with him. This blustery November day brings down most of the oak's remaining leaves. Dead artifacts of summer congregate sporadic across the lawn, as if huddled against the relentless cold. I cut back the last of the flowers in the front garden, remove leaves scattered like corpses amidst the decay of astilbe and once red sedum. The sky unfastens a patchy dusting of first snow as I lay down a layer of mulch. There are more gardens to tend, to blanket, keep safe, the way I would have tried to keep you safe until spring. I'm going to end on this one, which has to do with my adventures into ballroom dancing. So on the heels of a major medical event, which it took me about a year to recover from, and one that was serious enough I signed my son power of attorney. I decided I wasn't going to go out quietly, and I took up ballroom dancing. So it's called It's Hard to Dance When You're Wearing Heavy Armor. When I thread my way through the white of a forest, previously untrod snow underfoot, a winter's slate sky, trees laden with white reflect the rising sun as if glass. The feathering white of my breath hangs in the cold air, all near silent save a faint heartbeat, my own, and that of a snowy owl perched far to the north, the heartbeat, too, of a hidden earth, beneath layers of white on white. When I'm standing at last at the water's edge, a veiled shoreline morning welcomes and I shatter the pristine. Slip free of this cloak of lamb's wool, osprey feathers, layer upon layer of pale cotton, beads and ivory clasps. Abandon this heavy armor meant to protect, then kneel, place a warm palm to the ice-overed edge of a steel lake. It comes to life at my touch beneath the retreating light of last night's winter moon, a white moon. I step unbound into the cool water, lean into the dance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faith. Nice start, huh? And we're right on time. It's really nice to welcome Polly Bissett here with us tonight. It's the first time for Polly. We have a graphic artist who helps us with our website and a lot of our communications. And in addition to that, she's an advocate for local musicians. And she's my go-to person. So she introduced me to Polly's music, and I've had the good fortune of listening to it online for the last month or so. And you're in for a real treat. So Polly comes from this really, really small town in Rhode Island. I mean, Rhode Island is so tiny compared to like Georgia. It takes me, when I visit my friend Coleman in Athens, it takes me longer to get from the airport to Athens, Georgia than it does to fly from Rhode Island to Atlanta. So I always think, how many Rhode Islands could fit in Georgia? But there's also these small towns like Warren, Rhode Island. You just keep going east and east and east, and you go through coves and hamlets. And Warren is known to be a haven for artists in all mediums. And Polly comes from a family of artists. So we welcome you and your mom. Polly's had great success recently, as her bio in the program indicates. Her 2025 album won the Motif Magazine award for Best New Indie Album. So, I mean, I've always been told I'm an old soul. I'm now old enough to officially be one. But Polly gets her roots from 60s folk music, from the songwriters coming out of that generation, from the indie movements and traditional lyrics. The lyrics are a really important part of this, obviously. But you'll listen closely. You're going to hear a few poems set to beautiful music of an acoustic guitar. Come on up, Polly, and thank you for joining us.
Hi everyone, my name is Polly. Don't worry, I'm not texting, I have my set list on my phone. I know I'm from that generation, so, but it's okay. I don't text in class. Thank you, Lisa, for the introduction. That was very sweet, very kind. We just met today.
Sometimes we stop and stare. You know my daddy's got real good sight. You know my daddy's got real good sight. Well, inside a box there's 4 ways to turn. In each direction can be studied, can be learned. But the box is way up sky, and every breath adds distance to its height. But the lucky ones, they get it all, for they never have to see Sometimes we stop and stare. You know my daddy's got real good sight. You know my daddy's got real good sight. But I'm in the center of the earth, 'cause my mama raised me here as a child. She's got marks across her hands and her smile, and she carries fear along with me every mile. She carries fear along with me every mile. I said I'm in the center of the earth, 'cause my mama raised me here as a child. She's got marks across her hands and her smile, and she carries fear along with me every mile. She carries fear along with me every mile. Well, my mama's got real good sight. Yeah, my mama's got real good sight. I said my mama's got real good sight. She can see colors in a dead garden. She can see colors in a dead garden. She can see colors in a dead garden.
Thank you guys. I'm so used to playing in rowdy bars where no one's listening to me. So the intensity of having listeners is giving me a little shakes. This next song is called Little Confessions.
I know a troubled child when I see one. I know the bad kid playing on a rerun in my mind. I know my kind. I search for love like a moth on cashmere. I climb the neighbor's tree when they're not there, and I could fall and scare you off. But when I feel I'm close to heaven, I make all my mistakes. If my head's bowed in reflection, I'm a fool's gold, a fake. Don't bring me to the God you know. He doesn't like the grass I pull. He doesn't even laugh at jokes. Oh, mama, I'm all on my own. I know an angry home when I step in. I know the hunger hangs like drape skin in the back. Toys and wrath. I search for love like the non or raw bun. I let the curtain hide what is unknown in my mind. Through the vines. But when I feel I'm close to heaven, I make all my mistakes. If my head's bowed in reflection, I'm a fool's gold, a fake. Don't bring me to the God you know. He doesn't heal when I'm alone. He doesn't know the life I hold. Oh, mama, I'm all on my own. Well, I saw myself when I saw light. He doesn't like the grass I pull. He doesn't even laugh at jokes. And Mama, I'm all on my own. This song is called Hand-Me-Downs. Mama came home with designer linens, made our beds like Burl Royals, living in some place grand. She took our hands. He took his time, and the piano we loved went out the door like worn winter gloves. Antiques gone. It's so wrong. She's the only one holding on. Moved into a trailer when her mom got angry. Fed 6 kids when her dad was drinking, and now she's got a man-child boldly cursing, taking all our stuff away. Well, how about that? She's a hard-working woman, pays her bills, cleaning big old houses, money on the table with a callous touch, soft hand holding a hard hairbrush. Poor kids dripping from Turkish robes, heated by the fire to expel the ghost. He feels right, but we all know. She moved into a trailer when her mom got angry, fed 6 kids when her dad was drinking, and now she's got a man-child boldly cursing, taking all our stuff away. Well, how about that? She's a hard-working woman, pays her bills, cleaning big old houses, money on the table with a callous touch, soft hand holding a hard hairbrush. We're fast asleep in our feathered down, draft is sealed enough to keep the anger out, cold air flows, but we all know some hand-me-downs are meant to go. This next song is called Old Things in the Garden. Soft-spoken man fills the earth again, eggshells and onion skins, and the jars that bleed from the August heat when the warm air sours them. Can't take the garden out of him. Can't take the garden out of him or out of me. Old things will last or die, but nothing's gonna leave. Saw the playful sun in the attic run with the sunbeam on his head. how the creatures used to live. Can't take the garden out of him or out of me. Old things will last or die, but nothing's gonna leave. In the sketching room lie the notebook tubes as they fill with birds and dreams. There's an echo too, like a cockatoo, and his feathers on the seams. Can't take the garden out of him or out of me. Old things will last or die, but nothing's gonna leave. When the house sinks down many years from now, from the wearing of its spine, he will still believe that the rocks beneath are the shelter for our minds. Can't take the garden out of him or out of me. Old things will last or die, but nothing's gonna leave. When her organs fail, only one prevailed. It's recorded on the tape. May she rest in bliss, lovely organist, singing hymns at heaven's gate. Can't take the garden out of her. Can't take the garden out of me. Can't take the garden out of us. Can't take the garden. The garden. All right, I have one more song for you guys. And this song is called Nobody Goes Home. So don't go home after this. I've got a lot of time to kill. Nobody goes home. I'll wander alone. The flowers on the windowsill are frozen in space, like Earth was erased. And the people keep their distance, like all coffee's not the same. Well, it's a burnt bean water kind of day, so put a swear in the sky and pray. Oh. Let me live a little longer, let me grow a little taller, and be a little better, 'cause it never is enough. Work on my reflection, palm to palm, two directions, and be a little wiser, 'cause it never is enough. All the people keep their heads down, where it looks much less like sky, and we breathe as if it's evil, and we work and wonder why nobody goes home. live a little longer, let me grow a little taller, and be a little better, 'cause it never is enough. Work on my reflection, palm to palm, two directions, and be a little wiser, 'cause it never is enough. All the people keep their distance, like all coffee's not the same. Well, it's a burnt bean water kind of day, so put a square in the sky and pray. Nobody goes home. Nobody goes home. Nobody goes home. Nobody goes home. Nobody goes home.
One more time, folks, for Faith Vichinanza, and I don't know if you can hear me, for Faith and for Polly. What an incredible start to our evening. Thank you. Okay, friends, murmuring friends, happy friends, bellies and hearts filled with poetry and music, friends. We're going to get on with with our featured presenter. I will very quickly thank our friends at the LaGrua Center for allowing us to operate here. I'll thank my board members. They are listed in their entirety in our program. I'll thank them for baking, for setting up, for hanging posters, for bringing tubs of materials, and for their ongoing support. Many of our board members have been with the Arts Cafe since it started 31 years ago, including Christy Williams, who was one of the founding directors, and the artistic director before I took over, and who was just proclaimed about a month ago, but here 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago on a Monday afternoon, the official poet laureate of the town of Stonington. So, congratulations. So thanks to the board members, thanks to Jim Marshall, who's been videotaping our shows for 31 years. And he's always shocked when I bring him a sandwich. He drives from Norwich once a month to do this for 31 years. So Jim, thank you. And just about, well, certainly everyone in this room is a donor. Just by showing up, you're a donor. So we thank you for supporting us, those of you who donate during our fundraising seasons, and also those of you who don't just think you might come, but you actually show up. We appreciate it, and we're glad to have you here. So, with no further ado, I'm just so honored to introduce Martín Espada. I had the opportunity to hear Martín read before I was familiar with any of his poems on the page. It was 2008, and it was the Geraldine Dodge Festival in Waterloo Village, and I had the opportunity to be one of the lesser voices I think they called them Voices from the Village. So you got a little tent, and then at night you would have Robert Bly and Coleman Barks with the Paul Winter Consort, and maybe Lee Young Lee or Mark Doty. But the night that I was there, after Coleman and the Paul Winter Consort, Martín took the stage. And I'll never, ever, ever forget it. That feeling of being in direct contact with something so authentic and true and passionate. Genius is another word that comes to mind, but for me it's the passion. It's who you are embodied in the poems that I heard you share that evening, and 2 new books. So Martín, his bio's in the program, just about every prize you could think of, from the Ruth Lilly Prize in Poetry, there are Guggenheim's, his second to last book. That word might be penultimate, I'm not quite sure. Penultimate book, Floaters, won the National Book Award, and it also won the Massachusetts Book Prize. And the newest book just came out in April, and that's Jailbreak of Sparrows. So Martín and Lauren, thank you so much for making the effort. As Martín may or may not explain, he's been dealing with a major health issue in his ankle. So traveling is a burden, and standing and reading poems is a burden. But he's here for us. We've been trying for a few years, and hopefully looking at these beautiful faces is going to help you rally through. So grateful that you're here. Welcome, please, all of you, Martín Espada.
Buenas noches. Much better. Well, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Faith. Thank you, Polly. And as always, thanks to my wife, Lauren. You'll be hearing more about her shortly. I am going to read some poems from my new book, Jailbreak of Sparrows, followed by the book signing pandemonium. And speaking of books, book bans are back. Boo. I'm glad you're rooting for books. A couple of years ago, a children's book about Roberto Clemente was banned and then unbanned in Florida, of course. So here's a Clemente story, which is also a coming-of-age story. For those of you who may not know, Puerto Rican Baseball Hall of Famer Roberto Clemente died on New Year's Eve 1972, delivering earthquake supplies to Nicaragua. I was 15 years old. I was living in Valley Stream, Long Island. We had left my Brooklyn birthplace, and we were the only Puerto Rican family in town. Big Bird died for your sins. Barry was 6'6", 15 like me, floating layups and hook shots over our heads through the hoop in my driveway. We called him Big Bird for dwarfing us, for his slappy feet, for the mouth that hung in a grin at all our stories. We called him Big Bird because he would yell, "Foul!" every time anyone bumped him under the basket, as if we lived on Sesame Street. I liked Big Bird and his white boy afro. He never called me a greasy-haired spick under the hoop in my own driveway like Frankie, the clown on the block. On New Year's Eve, Roberto Clemente himself set foot on the prop plane at the airport at Puerto Rico. My father's island boxes for Nicaragua stacked up after the earthquake, knowing the dictator's Guardia Nacional would crack open the crates, greedy as a pillaging army if he did not loom over them. The DC-7, engine like a smoker's heart, 4,000 pounds overweight, sputtered 100 feet above the trees, then spiraled into the sea on a night when the moon deserted the sky, the keeper of a lighthouse dreaming drunk. A crowd kept vigil on the beach. His compañero, the catcher, dove and dove again between the fins that sliced the waves, till the propeller's twisted hand rose from the sea. But never the body, never the ball player, never Clemente, never. My father told me, Roberto Clemente is dead. I could swear my father's eyes were red. I had never seen my father cry. This must be hay fever in winter. My mother saw him cry once, watching the funeral of JFK on television, the black riderless horse and the empty boots in the stirrups of the fallen. Later, the day after, the baseball writers voted Clemente into the Hall of Fame. As the boys under the hoop toweled off and scooped up Cokes from a cooler, I said, when my father told me Clemente died, there were tears in his eyes. No one said anything, not even Frankie the Clown. Big Bird stopped grinning. Big Bird was thinking. The whine in his voice was gone when he finally said, they only did that because he was Puerto Rican. They only did that because he was black. There was once an episode on Sesame Street where Luisa Maria taught Big Bird about the meaning of death, how we all die one day, and his yellow head drooped heavy as a sunflower. I feel sad, he said. I could have rolled the numbers out like the dice in my Stratomatic baseball board game. 317, lifetime average 414 in the 1971 series, 3,000 hits, 12 gold gloves, the only walk-off inside the park grand slam in baseball history. I could have called on the spirit of a dead ball player to flood the screens in their heads with the leap and stab of the ball against the wall in right field that saved a no-hitter. The bark of the ball off his bat that fractured a pitcher's leg. I said nothing. I never said anything. Even when Frankie would croon his favorite song in my face, Spicka Spooka, the other boys would bathe in it. The next game began. I guarded Big Bird. I stomped on his slappy feet, spiked my elbows into his rib cage, rammed shoulder after shoulder into his back, blocked shots by jamming the ball into his chest. I knew nothing of karate, but kicked the air every time I yanked a rebound away. Foul! Yelled Big Bird, like a song on the jukebox nobody wanted to hear. Foul! This was my hoop, so I couldn't foul out. I wanted to see Big Bird cry like I saw my father cry. Big Bird sniffed. No one saw him sneeze. He squinted hard, but we all knew. That day, Big Bird died for the sins of the fathers who cursed the dark ball players on TV in the living room where their sons could hear it all. I had a vision of Big Bird rising above the palm trees, igniting in the air like a feathery piñata too close to the spark of a cigarette, crashing into the sea, the sharks feasting on yellow feathers, Luis and Maria on Sesame Street, explaining the meaning of a puppet's death as the nation mourned. When we look, what do we see? When we look, what do we see? Some people look at tattoos and see gangs. Some people look at Latinos and see invasion. My father, Frank Espada, was a community organizer and a documentary photographer. He was the creator of something called the Puerto Rican Diaspora Documentary Project, the photo documentary, the Puerto Rican migration. In other words, photographs of migrants by a migrant. He taught me how to look and how to see. The poem is called Look at This. My father spoke. Look at this, he said to me. We were walking through an alley from somewhere to somewhere else in Brooklyn. In front of us, a man with white hair and a white beard reached into a dumpster, plucked out a bag of potato chips, stuffed his arm up to the elbow in the bag, let it flutter to the pavement at his feet, and shuffled ahead. Look at this, my father said again. Sometimes he would repeat himself. He walked up behind the white-haired man and called, "Good morning, sir." So the other man wheeled around to see us, shook his hand, and left a $20 bill in the handshake, all without slowing down. We never spoke of it again. The day we left Brooklyn, he drove away so fast, he left a stack of his 78s in the closet of the apartment in the projects. Look at this, was all he said and all he had to say. Look. So, I had no choice but to become a lawyer. Seriously, I was a tenant lawyer with Su Clínica Legal. That was a legal services program for low-income Spanish-speaking tenants in Chelsea, Massachusetts, right outside Boston, across the Tobin Bridge from Boston. Our clients came from the Spanish-speaking Caribbean, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, but also, for the first time, they were coming from somewhere else. Central America, from Guatemala, from El Salvador, as they come now. So here's a poem from those days, and it's called "The City Wears a Coat to Bed." The white army of winter spreads across the city. Boilers and radiators die in their sleep, their skin cold to the touch in the morning. The city wears a coat to bed. The city watches the wraith of breath rise in the kitchen. On Friday afternoons, the judges slip off their black robes and drive home. There is no light in the windows of the courthouse. There is no one to read the affidavit or sign the injunction to shove into the landlord's hand so the heat courses through the heart of the boiler and the looping hard veins of the radiator again. No one to hear the tenant's story translated, her sons and daughters shivering in their coats on the mattress, snot on their sleeves. The judges and the landlord home, or stopping in a bar on the way home, she tells me instead. The lawyer who speaks Spanish and explains in Spanish why there will be no heat this weekend, why there is no one at the courthouse to listen, and still she pours her story into my ears till they swell to bursting. I walk her to the doorway of the office. The secretary is in the bathroom, the office space heater in the corner. Suddenly, I am steering the tenant out the door with the space heater in her arms. As she says gracias over and over, and I say, okay, okay, knowing the secretary would yell my name louder than the time a drunk with a lightning scar in his belly charged for the door naked, but for his socks and a Salvation Army blanket. The secretary would not miss the office space heater till Monday. I am the hero of this story, riding the bus home across the bridge, till I remember the words I should have said about the glowing coils too close to the mattress. How every week another fire rolls the smoldering wraith of winter through the bedroom as sons and daughters sleep. How every week EMTs tuck white sheets over bodies dead as a landlord's boiler. I will dream with eyes open of windows, the coils of space heaters and the coils of mattresses glowing in every window. So we got federal funds from the Legal Services Corporation. And Reagan hated legal services from his days as governor of California. So he zero funded the Legal Services Corporation and even put his own people on the Legal Services Corporation board. Does any of this sound familiar? Well, Congress would put less and less back in the budget. So we at Legal Services would go hand in hand to the private bar, the big law firms in Boston, looking for donations. And that's when the following incident occurred. Poem is called, "Your Card is the King of Rats." We were the lawyers from Legal Aid, ready to state our case at the luncheon of the Bar Association, the white shoe law firms, the last of the Boston Brahmins. I would peek in the windows of their townhouses in Lewisburg Square to glimpse the paintings on the walls, their ancestors stiff in oils. Back at the office, refugees from the land of death squads waited for us and apologized in Spanish, fingering eviction notices in hieroglyphics. I looped my pre-loop tie around my neck and walked into lunch with J. Rose, the street lawyer I wanted to be, who bewildered landlords like a chess grandmaster stoic behind spectacles at the city park games of boyhood. We were there to ask for donations, phones, fax machines, reams of paper, desks and chairs to speak the tongue of please and thank you. A man stood up to introduce me. He wore a pocket handkerchief. He spoke the tongue of Quincy Adams, the ancestor, Roosevelt, the distant cousin, grinning when he said, "I would like to introduce Martín." When I say Martín, I think martini. That makes it easier for me to remember. I waited for the inebriated chuckles to fade. I spoke of rats sniffing the milk on an infant's mouth, roaches camouflaged in the Raisin Bran like raisins with legs, ancient plumbing flooding the floors with the wrath of an ancient god. Dessert circled the table, pastry swans gliding on plates around the white tablecloth in homage to their cousins on the pond at the public garden. I saw the spoons dig into the crust of swans, scooping out the cherry filling. I saw the lawyers floating away from me in a reverie of decapitated swans. I had a law degree. I passed the bar on my first try. Now, I was a magician, hired for a birthday party. Boys and girls infatuated with the red innards of dessert jiggling on their spoons. I dealt my magician's deck of cards, Polaroids of rats in glue traps, roaches fatter and juicier than any raisin in the cereal box, the fountain of a toilet brimming a brown soup, snapshots we passed out to judges for injunctions to bless the landlords. How I wanted to call out and amaze all the lawyers at lunch. Is your card the king of rats? Is your card the queen of roaches? Is your card the ace of excrement? Spoons hung in the air. I saw the muscles in their jaws grind to a stop, like the wheels of trains pulling into the station. Some scrutinized their hand of Polaroids, aristocrats anticipating recitation of the details at a revolutionary tribunal. Some turned their hand face down, blackjack players praying for better cards. Some passed, never looking at the king of rats or the queen of roaches, as if to say, I left no red fingerprints on the white door of those who fled that place. Amid the swans, half-eaten, hearts open like valentines on the tablecloth, J. Rose, the street lawyer I wanted to be, hypnotist of landlords, stood up before the lawyers at the luncheon and said, we need donations, phones, fax machines, reams of paper, desks and chairs, please and thank you. He got it all. So, as an aside, I published that poem in the New Yorker, and they said, we want you to capitalize martini. I said, yeah, okay. Oh, the irony. Well, here comes the Trump poem. This is about poetry, actually. At his Save America rallies, Donald Trump would read a, quote, poem, actually the lyrics of a song, called The Snake, written and recorded by jazz singer Oscar Brown Jr. back in 1963. He based the snake on Aesop's fable, The Farmer and the Viper, but Trump used it to demonize immigrants. Meanwhile, while that was going on, a Department of Labor investigation of underage immigrant labor on the cleaning crews of slaughterhouses revealed more than 100 such cases in 8 different states. So that all comes together here in a poem called, fittingly enough, The Snake. At the Save America rallies, after the damnation of the criminal aliens breaking across our borders and 1,900% more murders, he would ask the crowds if he could read a poem. This has to do with immigration, he'd say. The crowds would whoop and yip. He'd read The Snake, words stolen from a song from the hand of a dead black singer who could not snatch it back, a jazz fable spun on vinyl, spun first by the fabulous of Greece centuries before Christ. The crowds would listen to the poem. Bikers for Trump, cops for Trump, Uncle Sam in his beard, the Statue of Liberty in her crown, the millionaire who sells pillows on TV. They would testify in T-shirts that said, Jesus is my savior, Trump is my president. They would hoist the stars and bars of signs that rhymed Trump 24 or before. They would see the movie or the poem in their heads. The snake frozen on the road, the woman scooping him up tight to nurse him with milk and honey by the fire, the incandescence of his skin brought back to life, the woman's kiss and the viper's venomous bite, her question, why? Then the words oozing from his tongue, you knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in. The crowd would howl at the moral, at the punchline, at the tender woman who would die of tenderness. Like a preacher spelling out the lesson of a parable, their president would repeat, immigration. As they slept, the bikers and the cops, Uncle Sam and the Statue of Liberty, the millionaire on his magic pillow. Adolescents from Guatemala scalded the killing floors at the slaughterhouse in Grand Island, Nebraska, their hoses like snakes spewing rivers that bubbled in the steam. Around them, the blades of skull splitters and bone saws waited for their fingers to slip, fangs lurking in the murk of early morning in the days behind the goggles on the faces of adolescents from Guatemala, sleeping the next day at Walnut Middle School, shaken awake by teachers who spotted the acid burns on their hands. So, Lauren, over there, is a writer and a teacher. She actually has 4 books to her credit. She taught urban ed for many years, including developmental English at a community college in Paterson, New Jersey, 4 days a week. And then on her day off, she would volunteer teach adult literacy at a rehab center in Paterson. And she's a tutor in this poem. Gonzo. Everybody knew Gonzo. His cigarettes and cologne, his gold crucifix, the white t-shirt he wore to every meeting. They leaned closer to listen whenever he spoke in the circle at the rehab center, some with eyes shut, seeing his confessions of addiction's demons and sobriety's angels at war. No one knew Gonzo signed his name with an X. The tutor at the rehab center held up flashcards and sounded out the letters A, B, C. There was no alphabet song in Gonzo's head, no teacher at the blackboard. He said the letters one by one. At the letter S, he stopped. The tutor studied Gonzo's nose, long but not as long as the nose of the Muppet with the same name. S, she said again. Gonzo had no front teeth, no place for his tongue to go. He puffed and sprayed, a man unable to navigate the river of his own name, Gonzales. He hid his face in his hands on lettered cards in his head, as if the tutor could not see him now. A sob surged through him, a beast chained to the rock of his ribs for 50 years, since the days the roosters woke him up for school in Puerto Rico. He wiped his face clean. Gonzo was clean. Clean fingernails, clean shaven, clean white shirt. The tutor waited, thinking, he doesn't know his letters, but he knows every street in Patterson by name. She squeezed Gonzo's wrist once, then again, till his eyes met hers. She held up the next flashcard. She said, "Say tea." So some of you saw the poem reproduced on the back of the program may have noticed that the ending is a bit different. That's the power of revision and the confusion of the poet. I'm going to read two more. A whole section of love songs in this book. I've been writing love songs to Lauren in the voices of strange creatures. For example, I lost a contact lens the day of a reading on the Cape, which put me in a foul state of mind. And then we saw a one-eyed fish in this sad little aquarium. So guess who I am in this poem? Love Song of the One-Eyed Fish. It's on page 61 of your hymnal. I circled the tank in the aquarium, waiting for the school groups to tumble down the aisle like acrobats escaping the circus clowns on their day off. They chatter about all the sharks they want to see, the dolphins to feed. They stop at my tank on tiptoe, fingers streaking the glass, and then they scream at the hole in my face. I am the one-eyed fish. My eyeball scooped out of the socket by another fish in a fight over who would hide in the rusty cylinder at the bottom of the tank, the authentic recreation of my environment in the bay. The teachers scream at the school groups to stop screaming and say to each other, "Is that all? Is this it?" We have no sharks or dolphins here, nothing on the second floor, only a can for donations by the door, and a one-eyed fish bumping off the glass. Stanza 2. One morning, after I stare with my eye at the janitor mopping the floor, waiting for the 7th grade to yell in my half face, I see the flash of you, an angel fish in my tank, proof that the gods of the aquarium are benevolent, that they checked the rusty cylinder at the bottom of the tank and figured out why the other fish was always sleeping. I am a fish in a tank, doomed to swim in circles forever, and so I cannot hide the hole in my face. Yet you do not flip to the corner of the tank or dive into the rusty cylinder. You swim with me, and we circle the tank together. The school groups tumble down the aisle on cue, and the teacher says, "Look, an angel fish." If I could sing, that would be the name of my song. Look, an angel fish. I also have one called Love Song of the Disembodied Head in a Jar. But I'm not going to read that one. Things were going so well. But I am going to finish with this poem, and then I'll be doing the book signing right there at that table, because that's my table. Please come and say hello. Thank you for being such a good audience. There are all kinds of love poems, as I have just amply demonstrated. This last poem is a poem from my dear friend, teacher, and mentor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. His name is Steve Stern. Steve and his wife, Florencia Mayon, are historians of Chile, where she was born. Florencia is now in memory hospice with dementia. Some of you are familiar with the song Gracias a la Vida, Thanks to Life. Joan Baez used to sing it. Violeta Parra wrote it. So I'll finish my reading with this. Thanks again. This poem, on page 77, is called Florencia, Again and Again. The singers sang to Florencia Mayon today. The threshold singers stood at the bedside in memory hospice and sang as the poster of Frida Kahlo looked on, as Florencia looked on. The only word she spoke was no. The only word still left on her tongue as she colored in her coloring book. The chorus sang as you walked into the room, and Florencia's eyes brimmed with the sight of you, husband, compañero. You slid behind her, arms looped around her neck, and she leaned back, lips sprouting for a kiss on the mouth once, then again. Let's sing to the singers, you said. You queued up the song on your cell. You sang, Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto. Thanks to life that has given me so much. Florencia sang in Spanish, was Florencia again. The song drifting from a window in the girlhood Santiago of her head. She became the writer of histories she could no longer read, the teacher of students who would remember what she could not remember, Florencia again. When life in the song gave her the abecedario, she sang the word for alphabet from a spring so deep in the cavern of her brain, no neurologist could ever find it. Florencia again. When life in the song gave her La Marcha de mis pies cansados, she sang about the march of my tired feet, loud enough to startle the pack of nurses in the hallway, the march with you, her compañero, your tired feet trying to keep up with her, the march against the dictator in her Chile, all the songs the crowd would sing, Florencia again. How do you kill an idea? Florencia said to me when I asked why so many had to die in Chile, at an age when I still had to ask. 6 words I will carry like tiny shells from Chile as long as I remember what I remember. Florencia again. Gracias, you sang with Florencia at the bedside to the singers at Memory Hospice. You handed them the sheets with the printed lyrics of the song. Next time, when you come, you can sing it to her, you said. Florencia again. My teacher, tomorrow you will turn the knob all hands dread, as if the steel would liquefy their fingers, walk through the door once more and sing. And so, Florencia will become Florencia again and again. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
Those of you who bought books, who are going to, Martine will be signing over here. Faith is also here. She brought those handmade journals. Maybe a few of you will be inspired to buy one and start writing your own songs and poems. Thank you all for being here. Our program for next fall is on the back. Faith, Polly, Martine, what an incredible evening. And don't we all want a tutor like Lauren?